Hello, how you doing? This is the Road to Recovery, the Road to Freedom with Mark. This is my half-hourly slot, 28-minute slot in fact, every Friday, where I bring to you one of my stories from my adventures around the world and around New Zealand. I had some great adventures around New Zealand, and that's my story today. And I talk a little bit about depression, about that mental health issue that really needs to be addressed and unfortunately doesn't get addressed in New Zealand. It just gets swept under the carpet, and anyone suffering from mental health, the things that I'd recommend you do is go and see a doctor, get some decent drugs, talk to some people, make sure you're getting decent sleep. The most important thing is sleep. Of all things, it's amazing how buggered you get after a couple of days of no sleep. It really does stuff you up, and I really struggled with that in the beginning. I couldn't sleep at all. I became an insomniac, and I really struggled terribly, and I'm starting to get things underway now, and occasionally I have to sleep for 10 or 12 hours, and I know that's a hell of a lot, but the most important thing that I learned in my journey when I went for counselling was to look after yourself and be gentle with yourself, and most importantly, be more mindful. Now, being mindful is an extremely important thing, to be appreciative of things, to be aware of things. Now, I read something today, and I'm going to read you this. I was really moved by this, and it's so damn good that I think it bears repeating on the television. It's not really to do with mental health, it's to do with one extraordinarily individual. She lived in Carterton. Her name was Rowena Louise Cook, aka Nanny Lou, or Auntie Lou, who died at the age of 85. And she is remembered by a chap called Ray Smith, a mokopuna of the Wairarapa, and I was so moved to read this. I think it bears repeating, so bear with me. A stereotype for a hero is someone, usually a male, in the prime of life, who performs one extraordinary feat that only he could complete, and it was so significant that it improved the whole world. The hero is then remembered with a reverence revered as hero worship. This cult of personality dominates many structures in our modern society, from leadership to personal development. It is the heroic journey. In the midst of this, I remember my Auntie Lou. When an old woman has spent a lifetime carrying the unassuming responsibility of welcoming people onto the Wairarapa marae, a cursory view does not see a hero. That would be a mistake. The first voice to reach out across the marae is not a mere welcome to a guest, it is a karanga. The call is for the whole of a person, as part of the community, as part of their ancestry, to weave with the marai's community and marai's ancestry. Anyone who had been welcomed by Auntie Lou knew she was embracing all of who they were. It was a quiet world. That word has often been an encouragement, a hope. One marae committee meeting was the best meeting I've attended. It was in the midst of some business, and we were locked out of the marae. It was one of those warm autumn days that rises from a cooler start and just wraps a slow energy around you. All of us there decided to just sit with each other because no one was expecting us for 2 hours. The stories drifted between us, and Auntie Lou's smile that lit up her face would signal her heart had caught another memory. She then told us about a relative, weaving our ancestry around us. While there are no minutes, my heart remembers. Mahuta is a lovely concept. It is when something appears bigger than it actually is. Tāne Mahuta was one of the younger siblings, but he appeared more senior because of how he looked after his family. My Auntie Lou was a mahuta. She might have been small, but she was a heroine. She wasn't fleeting, she was constant. She wasn't one event, she was many events. She wasn't the main speaker, she was the heart's voice. She wasn't on a heroic journey, she was on a heroine's journey. Even at 85, Auntie Lou died too young. Now that I found very moving. That's what I love about Maori and what makes me feel so privileged to live in such an amazing country with such wonderful people. Yeah, I understand, Ray, she must have been a huge loss to you, and I really feel for you. I really think that we have something special in this country, utterly unique, and Maori make us special in their magnificent way of dealing with the world and the way that they honour their elders. We could really learn a lot, and I think the time is coming now where we are more willing, open, able to listen and to understand. And I think that bodes well for our future. I think we have a great future in New Zealand, and I really feel truly privileged to live in such a wonderful country with such magnificent people. So thank you, Ray, very much for that. That really was special. Right, on with today's story. This is the first story I ever wrote for this series. This is called The Dog's Day, and it reminds me very much of a great old friend of mine. His real name is Stu. I call him Tom because, you know, he's not the sort of guy that likes to get his name put out there, but he's a real legend, a man who's lived off the land his whole life and is an incredible individual. And I was very, very privileged to work with him for a year and go hunting with him on the off days, and we had wonderful times. It was extremely hard and not really my cup of tea, but I got some great stories out of it, and I will certainly never forget all the wonderful times we had. So let's get on with today's story. It has been said that dogs live with determination. Never is that more true than in a hunting dog. The old mate, who I refer to as Tom for short, woke me about 4 a.m. The air was cool as we geared up for a hunt. Tom's Winchester 30-30 lever action felt cold and heavy, but its advantages of being short so as not to catch on the branches and its mule-like kick made it essential for our adventure. Spare bullets, a sticking knife, some twine rounded out the kit. We were travelling particularly light for this trip, and I felt like a passenger as I pulled on my boots and shouldered the 30-30. Tom chose 4 dogs from the kennel, all of them making a terrible racket as their time drew close, the excitement palpable. They stank but were fit to burst, rushing around, yet staying very near to Tom, their master. The dog's loyalty to Tom, unquestioned despite the indifferent attitude shown to them. Orders were curt and short as we made for the quad bike and the dogs came to join us. Tom kicked the motor over. I sat side saddle on a mudguard and pinned myself in by bracing my legs against the front. The dogs all tried to jump up on the back tray, but could not fit, and tussled amongst themselves in a game of King of the Castle. No bites or fangs, as they were happy enough to jog alongside as we slowly pulled away, down the drive and up the first incline, through some gates, and we were into the bush. Suddenly the attitude of the dogs changed to become more quiet and confidently intense. In the cool of the morning, the stars slowly began to disappear. Still a little dark when we picked up first sign. Rutted soil so fresh even we could smell it, and shit the size of a Coke can, which is where our name for them came from. The spoor of a big tusker boar, the top prize in pig hunting, which had already passed by. The two lightest dogs, our finders, showed some interest and quickly swept the gully in the next ridge, but quickly swung back. They understand the role required despite no orders. Havoc and Quinn are the finders, having the right smarts and light body type for the job. They are both mongrels, Havoc being dark and Quinn the more grey in the coat, but nature seems to have mixed the very best in them. The other two hanging back can find as well, but will act as bailers or holders today. They must stop the pig and hopefully give it a good stretch. Their names are Bob and Meg. Both dark, Bob is the oldest and most proven. Meg is the youngest and must prove herself worthy to stay. The bush we are passing is treacherously steep, and I am grateful for the quad bike despite the noise and discomfort. We travel some 10 kilometres along a fire break, then park it up. At first the silence is overwhelming. The air is so clear the sun's first rays play tricks with it. I stare up, my mouth agape at this wonder, and Tom smiles knowingly. "Come on," is all he says, and begins along the fire break. The dogs quickly fall into line, two left, two right, and I bring up the rear with the rifle. Up and down, up and down. The further we walk, the more I have second thoughts about today. For I have a specific task too. My job is to tip up the pig by grabbing its hind leg so it can be stuck or dispatched with a knife. Once the beast is gutted, my job is then to carry it on back to the quad bike. I have been designated the bearer, so the further we go, the longer my return. We come across more fresh signs, and the finders quickly fan out and down in sweeping runs. I can hear them crashing through the bush occasionally, then a bated silence as we wait for the anticipated bark as one of the finders catches sight of his quarry. In the 1,000 hectares of regenerating native bush Tom lives on, he has introduced many pigs, and the trophies of many boars' jawbones, including hooks, are nailed up all around Tom's place. I have little doubt of our success, but I feel some trepidation as we distance ourselves from transport. So far nothing, and the sun has already risen. I feel its warmth despite it only being a little after dawn. The blue sky promises a blistering hot day where scent and trail will disappear as the pigs seek water and shade further down the gully. The dogs have been gone a little while, tracking a mob of pigs. From the tracks, one big boar, a bunch of females and some young. If sprung, the cunning boar will run uphill through the mob and sacrifice the young to save himself. A good dog will stay on the boar if possible, but in the ensuing chaos may have to choose a lesser prize. This is where a good dog shows his true quality. Be it God or nature, some special dogs like old Bob will stay on the biggest pig he alone can wrestle or bail. Hopefully by then the rest can close in and the bail proceed as planned. To this point they hunt silently, crossing and recrossing the track through the bush, working their way down the gully in pursuit. Tom and I wait silently, having a smoke and listening quietly for the first telltale bark. I sense the anticipation. Tom is like a coiled spring despite his quiet nature. Then suddenly it comes. A faint, high-pitched bark which leaves us in no doubt. A finder has sprung the mob. More barking as the mob breaks. Moving around, it sounds like they are escaping, and we hesitate our pursuit. Then a second dog rings out nearby. We look at each other, then charge headlong through the bush. I am so pleased for the short rifle, as the going is tough through dense bush, but soon I find the bottom of the gully and the pig's tracks. Tom and I lose track of each other as the noise intensifies and a squeal breaks out. The pigs break and tear off down the gully as Tom and I regroup, then come across where the fight ensued. We wait for another bail, or the dogs to return. Excitement and disappointment are tempered with relief as I realise what a haul it would have been from this place. Soon old Bob returns to us with blood on his face. It had been close, but the pigs managed to break downhill and escape. We'll try them again later, Tom informs me with casual confidence. Meg returns, so Tom wolf whistles for the others to return, and we slog our way back to the top of the gully. By now there is a real heat in the sun, but we push on with greater urgency as we lose the advantage of morning. Returning empty-handed is an option neither of us want to consider. More tracks, signs and sweeps as the sun begins to beat down and the cicada's song pulses almost as one great choir. After a few more kilometres, we stop at the head of a large gully where a breeze rises from below. We strip down and lie down in the scrub near the edge of the track. It offers a bit of a mattress and protection from the sun. Another wolf whistle brings the other two dogs up. Tom pulls out a pair of binoculars and scans the gully below, across this broad sweeping opening. Before long, Tom spots a sow with young in tow across the other side, trot-trotting like little circus performers. We decide not to pursue, and the dogs seem happy to stay, lie around and sniff the breeze. These dogs are veterans and know not to exhaust themselves, preferring to lap at muddy puddles and lie around for a bit. They come to us for reassurance, the bush having cleaned them up a bit. We speak to them in soft, low tones, and although tense, they seem satisfied for the while. Tom and I trade a few tales while we wait and wander down to find water. The thick bush smells wonderful, and the foliage cools the place nicely. So I return reassured our afternoon effort will not be beyond me. This gully opens wide and flattish, coated with various types of bush where pigs and deer might hide. As the sun rises high, Tom decides to strike out again, this time to quietly follow the gully down to a natural wallow where the pigs might be holed up for the afternoon. We have the important advantage of staying upwind from them all the way. The dogs noiselessly close in behind as we look for tracks or sign. Before long we come across more rooted up soil and fresh droppings. The dogs show immediate interest. Havoc and Quinn break as if ordered and scoot off down the gully. Meg and Bob decide to follow, and we are not far behind, with Tom leading. Within minutes another bark breaks, but much closer to us, and Tom halts us both. Soon barking and growling evidences another bail, and we pursue. The mob break up the side of the gully, but the dogs stay on the job for a second bail and some bracken. We half swim through the bracken and fallen trees referred to as tiger country. We are so close the last is a frustrating slog, and I come upon an unreal sight. Quinn and Havoc have bailed the longest pig I have ever seen. Through the snarls and mock charges, it slowly dawns on me that they have two big sows back to back. Each of them is on ahead, and they mean business. The other two dogs have another pig further down, but we must concentrate on the sows, lest one of the dogs gets bitten. The squealing and growling intensifies, but I am unable to get through the bracken to tip the pig up. "Give me the gun," shouts Tom, and I respond quickly. Tom ploughs in, releasing the safety and shouting encouragement to the dogs as he goes. He knows a clean shot is impossible. Only a hip shot will do in this situation, and he thumps off a shot. One of the sows breaks as both dogs set on the dying beast, and we swim into the site of the kill and pull the dogs off with reassuring praise of "good boy." As I close in, the sow is still twitching, despite a clean heart-lung shot, the light of life slowly flickering out in her eyes. We go through the motions of tipping her up and sticking it through the heart. She is pregnant with pignets, so looks huge at first glance. "Yum, in pig sow," says Tom, as he guts our prey with ruthless efficiency. Having never eaten a pig and in pig sow, it means little at the time. We tie up the front legs of the carcass, and Tom helps lift it onto my back, its front legs over my shoulders, literally piggyback style. I start the slow march back up to the top of the gully, and the carcass feels like twice the estimated 50 kilos. Sweat begins to pour, and I immediately regret smoking. Doubts enter my mind as I look up to where we ascended from. My heart thumps its complaint at this exertion, but finally I finish the first pull, and I collapse out onto the track. The animal's blood has poured down my back and legs, warm and sticky. Gross as it is, I try to ignore it, as all four dogs emerge from the bush, with Tom, who has a satisfied look on his face. "That'll be a good carry," he muses unhelpfully. I catch my breath and begin the carry proper. With every uphill pull, the air seems to get hotter and sweat pours off my nose. I dare not look up, but haul steady and constant. Tom can only make jokes and tease me, as this is a cakewalk in comparison to many he has had to endure. Still there is a glimmer of sympathy in his voice as I slog on through the heat. The dogs too seem satisfied with their work and amble along, showing no ill effects from their earlier battles. I am quietly pleased the dogs did not get gored or poked by a big boar. Those ivory tusks can rip the guts out of an unlucky dog, and Tom has had to stitch up his dogs many times. Finally the quad bike comes into view, and I am exhausted by the constant haul, so I'm glad to be relieved from my burden. "Look at the state of you," laughs Tom. "Still, that was a good carry," he muses. "Even some fit guys struggle with that part." The small compliment a little satisfaction, despite my utter exhaustion. We tie the pig to the back of the bike, fire it up and begin the slow haul home in the afternoon heat. Thoughts stray to shade and a cold drink as we near the house but for a couple of jobs. When we reach the house, I fetch a couple of cold drinks while Tom hangs the beast and scorches the hair off with a gas torch. After its defurring and delousing by fire, we hang the pig in the cool house, purpose-built for the job. We put the dogs back in their kennels with a few compliments, and I rid myself of bloody clothes and shower off what remains as Tom tidies up the carcass. Once we're both cleaned up, we review the day's hunt, and Tom extols the virtue of the treat we are in for later that night. A few hours later, a hind quarter is removed and set to roast, my hunger and anticipation increasing with every passing drink. As the sun sets and a few friends gather, we begin the feast of roast pork and potatoes with roast vegetables. The meat tastes like a mix between mutton and pork. As delectable as promised, the banquet seems to quench my tiredness, but eventually I must to bed. My dreams that night are filled with chasing pigs up hill and down gullies. The dogs are quiet all night with full bellies and the satisfaction of a job well done. I know another adventure is just around the corner. The dogs seem to know it too. The end. That was The Dog's Day, my first story I ever wrote for this series, and it brings back great memories. It was quite a few years ago now that we got into hunting, and yeah, I really learnt what it was all about, and fishing too, you know. It was a wonderful stay out at Tora, and although I've fallen out of touch with those people, it was amazing to meet such genuine people who live off the land. They live an amazing life, and not many people in New Zealand live like that anymore. It is very, very rare, and very rare to meet them, so it was a real privilege, and I really enjoyed it so much. Well, that's me for another day. I hope you enjoyed the show. I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. There was a lovely piece that Ray wrote about Auntie Lou, and it really was a very, very special thing, and I thought well worth bringing to you, because we need to remember the special people in life who do so much for others, and if you can be one of those people and you can help someone suffering from mental health issues, suffering from depression, be that difference maker, and you never know, you just might save a life, and what a wonderful thing that would be. Okay, that's me. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say Michael is doing a bang-up job down here at Arrow Radio. Everything's gone wrong this week and he's really been struggling, but somehow he's managed to keep his head above water. Michael and Veronica down here do a fantastic job. They've supported me for so long, and they're such good people. They really deserve support. So if you know of anyone who wants to sponsor this show, we really could do with a sponsor. Ensure that this thing keeps going. And just ring Michael or Veronica down at Arrow. She's a not-for-profit organisation, so they do great work in the community. Really magnificent job, and I can't say enough about them. So well worth their support. All right, that's me for the week. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you again next week. Bye for now.